It all started in the beginning of September. Then it went over to the airports of Denmark, then Germany and Lithuania, yesterday in Belgium and the Czech Republic. Basically drones that appeared out of nowhere and vanished into nowhere. And now the question that I'm asking myself is that just a psyop? What is good, 369? Today we're going to talk about the current drone sightings, the drone spottings that we had in Europe, and always with the question in our back of the mind if this is a psyop. And first of all, I want to introduce you to basically the timeline of those drone spottings that we had, starting with September, and there on the 9th of September were the first spottings of Russian drones in Poland, with 19 drones that appeared out of nowhere in Poland and were then shot down. And this already back then was called an act of aggression. Now over this month of September we see several sightings. I'm just going to list them quickly. 13th of September, Russian-German drone at the border of Romania. 22nd of September in Norway at the airport of Oslo. Then the same day, drones over Montmelon-le-Grand military base in France. 23rd of September in Denmark and Norway. 5 Danish airports had seen drones, and in Norway, Oslo airport once again with drones. Then 26th of September, Germany in Schleswig-Holstein, so basically near the border to Denmark. There we also had drone sightings, and then 27th to 28th of September, once again Denmark, but here now military bases. And then late September, the Baltic states like Lithuania and Latvia had seen also drones coming from the Baltic Sea. And where the question now is if this is the shadow fleet of Russia. And then yesterday we had seen drones in Munich airport and in the East Belgian region, also near German border over a military base. And because we are in the thinking pillar, and when we see these major things happening, we should always question and think a bit, and that's why I'm asking this question, if this is a psyop, because it could be, as we're going to see. But first of all, what do all of these things have in common? Because the target was always a sensitive area. So for example, all the time those airports, major lockdowns on those airports, or the military bases. Then we also have the similarity of the timing and, so to say, the nature of the sightings. Those drones were always spotted in nighttime, or generally they had brief appearances until they then just vanished. And many of those drones are actually just unconfirmed because they have been seen, but they weren't proven to actually be there. And now I want to tell you why I think this could be a psyop. So first of all, a psyop is like the structured effort to shape certain thinking, emotional patterns, behavior patterns in a certain party in order to reach a certain outcome. So for example, to distract them or to shape generally fear in the population. And how is this done? Basically through selected information or specified information that is given out to the public, which could potentially reach your goal. And here is now this case that I'm thinking about. All these drones that we have seen, where are they being led to? They're led to Russia. And what is Russia now about? It's all about the Ukraine-Russian conflict, and basically Russia is this big of an enemy. So instead of actually trying to come close with Russia and trying to make friendship again, trying to get peace, actually we're trying to build this picture of an enemy even bigger. And I've said it at the beginning that basically with this attack on Poland, this should be, or this shall be, an act of aggression from Russia, from Moscow. We can see that the enemy now again is Russia, and all these drones appear to come from Russian sources, or generally from Russia, even though many of these sightings are not verified. And there is the problem, and there are some questions that I'm asking myself. First of all, where do these drones actually come from? And yes, some of these drones are actually from Russia, so we cannot deny the fact that some of these drones are Russian, but not every drone is from Russia. The attack on Poland, these were definitely Russian drones, and at the border of Romania, these were also Russian drones, but we also had in Norway, for example, some hobbyists that just started their drones. So in Norway, there were German hobbyists that just started their drones. And for example, another attack that we had seen in Poland over the Belvedere in Warsaw, there were actually Belarusian Ukrainian people that started the drones. They were later arrested, so this is also not Russian. And other cases are simply not verified at all, where we don't know where these drones actually come from. So we cannot paint the picture of the enemy until we actually know more. And where do these drones go? Because where do these drones come from? And how can it be that these drones just vanish? Of course, at the first sighting of drones in Poland, we saw that they were shot down. Other drones crashed, but most of these drones actually just vanished. And then I'm asking myself, how can this be? We can spot rockets, we can spot other attacks, ground attacks and air attacks, but we are not able to track down some drones, which seems weird to me, but it has a reason. And of course, the European satellite and radar system is very good. It has, for example, electro-optic cameras or infrared cameras, so it can spot basically many things. And the satellite system is also made for broad surveillance, but it is not as good in order to spot drones, which is really awful. For example, there's this Danish company called Robin, I guess. I'm not even sure, but I think so. And they produce radar systems. And the basic point of them is saying, okay, we have radar systems and they're fucking good and they can spot drones, but basically some of them or most of the radar systems can't distinguish a bird from a drone. And then most of the radar systems also have problems with nighttime, and we have seen all of drone attacks were at nighttime. So this is also just bullshit. We paint this picture of the enemy, which is Russia, and we can spot their rockets, but we don't have systems in order to spot their drones, if they are even their drones, because we are not quite sure. How does this make sense? And then we also don't have enough forces in order to fight against Russia. And I mean, the whole war scenario just is bullshit. Most people don't want to go to war. I wouldn't want to go to war. Why should anybody go to war? Why can't just like Putin and Trump or whatever, can't they just play video games like Fortnite? Like, the future of war will basically be just a fight of machines. If this is going to be AI controlled or if it's just going to be a drone fight, I don't know. But this is basically the future of war. And now to go back, I drifted a little bit away from the main topic. And now to go back to the question, could this be potentially a psyop? I would say more potentially yes than no. Could it be attacks from Russia? For sure, but we just don't know enough. Could it be a psyop because we're trying to paint a picture of Russia being the enemy? Yeah, potentially. And there's just not enough data in order to specify any one of my claims here, either being yes or no. But until we have more information, until this whole situation is more clearly, because it's quite mysteriously and weird, it's just not enough information to say yes or no. But until then, I must stay with my claim here. And I want you to also think about it and to either deny my claim or to approve my claim in the comments. And until then, I hope you liked this episode. Leave a like, comment and subscribe. Then we're going to see each other once again in another video this month in the thinking pillar on this channel.